Hello, good day, everyone. Welcome at this IAACD sharing and listening and sharing session. We're going to talk today about diagnosis versus functional thinking, best of both worlds. And I'm very honored that we were asked to organize this session. I think more people may be joining us. But they're very welcome. Marijn, do you want to check the lobby regularly so that I don't have to do that? Thank you. We are recording this session for others to be able to watch the session later on through the IAACD website. And this, so if you don't want that, you can see the instructions on the screen as to what to do then. I do this session together with Marijn Bult and with Marieke Willems, and I will introduce them later on. We organized this session from out the Dutch Academy of Childhood Disability, and we're going to talk about partnership for children with disabilities. We think, and we will explain to you why, but we think that if you think functional thinking is important, and we do so, you also need to work together and have partnership with parents and children. So we will start with this. We have made a presentation of about 30 minutes to tell you something about our journey from diagnosis to functional thinking and beyond, our experiences on working together with parents and people with disabilities, and the gain that we got from that, and also a little bit about what we think are the positive sides. And after that, we hope to share with you and hear from you also the experience that you have in involving children and parents of children with disability in your daily care and in research. First, I will tell something about myself. I'm Matthijs Alsem. I'm a rehabilitation physician in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I work in the Amsterdam UMC, and I do this session together with Marijn. She works at the Center of Excellence for Rehabilitation Medicine Utrecht. Has a lot of experiences in projects which involve people and parents in the research project, and also with Marieke Willems op het veld. She works at CP Nederland, that's the parent organization of people with cerebral palsy. So what are we going to talk about? First, I'd like to say something about the situation. And the past years, we see that medicine and also pediatric medicine is improving. We have more treatment options for conditions that were previously lethal. For instance, oncology, neuromuscular disorder, genetic disorders, and also neonatology. And this means that children that survive longer. But on the other side, we see that children do survive, but sometimes with chronic conditions and with disabilities. This constitutes a wide variety of diseases in the categories, but more categories than also the oncology, NMA, genetics, and neonatologies. And we see a big overlap between children with healthcare needs and children with medical complexity. It's a growing group of children, and although it's not a very big group of children, they have a lot of healthcare expenses and ask a lot of. They deserve and ask a lot of attention from us as healthcare professionals. We have to ask ourselves, what are the treatment goals of the treatments that we provide them with? Is it curation or improvement of functioning? And that's constantly the question. I'd also like to say something about a new phenomenon that we see emerging in healthcare. It's P4 medicine. It's a different way to look at diseases, and P4 stands for predictive, preventive, personalized, and participatory. And P4 medicine is a different way to look at disease diagnosis and treatment. It's about looking for the real cause of the disease and treating the cause of disease at the best level, for instance, at the molecular or genetic level, and not at the symptoms. We in P4 medicine, they try to use big data of a lot of people to understand diseases. It's about multi-omics to understand every system and every system that causes diseases. And it strives to participatory action where the people with the disease own their own data and use their own data in, well, preferably their own benefits. I think this is the past years, it's just emerging. P4 medicine, if you're interested, I would very much like to advise you to read the article about P4 medicine that is named here. So as long as people are have illnesses, we also always have a group of children with chronic diseases and or disabilities, and to understand how they function and what they need to function and better, we need to understand more about them. Well, I think for most of the people here, the ICF model is quite clear. We have to ask ourselves, how can we make our patients better? And if we cannot treat a disease or diagnosis, we have to see how we can influence their functioning. And the ICF model places the functioning on different levels, on the level of functions, on the level of activities and participation in the context of diseases or diagnosis, and in the context of contextual factors such as environmental factors and personal factors. And I think especially the latter are very important if we talk about participation and activities of children with disabilities. But to be honest, we don't know very much about them and about the mechanisms that are behind the interaction of all the different ICF models. However, we know more and more about the modifiable factors to improve development and participation of these children. But if we want to know something about the context, about personal factors, about environmental factors, and obviously for children, most important environmental factor is the family situation. We have to ask and inquire these people themselves, because they are the experts on their own functioning, and they are the experts on how to live with a disability and how to participate with disability. So we need them also if we're doing research or innovation. And this is the picture of the research cycle. I think most of you will be familiar with it. Doing research consists of a lot of different aspects. And the question is always where to involve these experts. We need them in our research to be able to, for different reasons, and Marieke will explain more about that later on, but where to involve them, and even more difficult sometimes to answer is how to involve these experts. And you know, well, there's more and more experience with that, and I think in every aspect of doing research, it can be valuable to involve the experts or parents or children themselves. But in all different phases of the cycle, it's different how you can do it best. And well, we like to share some examples from our network. And I give the word to Maureen. I don't know if Maureen is here.
Yeah, I am here. Thank you very much, Matthijs. I hope you can all hear me clear, because there's a lot of rain pouring down on my roof at the moment. So please, if it's unclear, let me know. I will give a short introduction on the PERIN study, because the PERIN study is a large study that was done for 20 years in the Netherlands, and the basic question really was, how do the different ICF domains interact with each other? So it was the focus of the study was on the activity and participation domain to find out what are several targets for intervention. What do we know about the development of children with cerebral palsy from an early age until young adulthood? So in 2000, the PERIN study, and the acronym is for Pediatric Rehabilitation Research in the Netherlands. It started with the development of clinometrics for children with cerebral palsy. We hope to get insight into the development of participation and activity level of children with CP. And it also looked at an analysis of the rehabilitation programs in the Netherlands. So that's a very short introduction. I will tell you more about the Perrin study. I'd like to give the word to Marieke on the importance of Perrin.
Thank you, Maureen. Well, first of all, I'll explain a little bit more about the importance of the Perrin data for people living with cerebral palsy, and also, of course, the importance of the experiential expertise. First of all, I think it's important to tell you a little bit more about CP Nederland. That is a patient or association in the Netherlands that I work for as a project manager. We are there for all the people with cerebral palsy, for their families, for the parents, for their loved ones. We have about 1,000 members, and we have a strong network in which we operate. I got it. Sorry? I thought I heard something, but let me know if it's not clear. We have a strong network in which we operate, consisting of professionals, of researchers, and also other patient organizations. And our primary goal is that people living with cerebral palsy can participate in society in every domain in the best possible way for them. So that is, that's the broader picture. And our role in there is to provide and share information for people, also to encourage people to share their own experience that other people can learn from. And also we try to serve interests in politics. And then the reason why why the data of Perrin is so important, because it is evidence-based research that can really serve as a basis in helping people to understand what they can expect for the future of their child. For example, they really want to have answers to all their questions that they're having in terms of, is my child able to walk someday, or will my child be able to take care of him or herself in the future? All these data is really important to help us understand, and together with professionals can talk about this and make the data also available for a wide array of people. So that's a little bit about this. And how do we then cover this experiential data? We are actually seen in the Netherlands as one of the three parties in the triangle. If you have the triangle with researchers, professionals, and the patients, in this case, people living with cerebral palsy, we are really part of this, and we really are in the research studies and projects. We really are consulted. We really are asked for our opinions, because this value is extreme, or the voice of the people here is extremely highly valued and also consultant, because really we together see it as a joint effort actually. And the way in which we interact with the people we represent is via various channels. We have the social media platform in which we have on a daily basis interaction. We have meetings that we organize in which we hear from them. We have other events that we can talk with. Sometimes we do a focus group or a study. And in this case, for Perrin, we really try to make the data that is available, and Maureen will tell you a little bit more about it, because the data that is available is really big. We try to, together with all the other experts, throughout several processes that we have in place, like a work group, we have a sounding group. We really try to analyze, interpret, and present the data in such a way that is understandable for people, that they can talk about it with their doctor, that they can ask their questions based on what they're seeing from this data. So we try to really be a partner in helping people with cerebral palsy understand the need for, I understand their needs and be able to answer the questions in the best possible way we can, because of course we know that we cannot predict the future, and it's always difficult, but we hope this helps. And I think this experiential expertise is really helpful in this, and I'm happy that this is such a big part in the project. So I think that's about it.
And I would like to take you along in some of the key elements of the parent study to just to help understand why the experts by experience, the parents, the people with cerebral palsy are so important in our research and in the projects that we do. And it also sheds a little bit more light on the shift from diagnosis to functional thinking, from science to how can this science help the daily life of people with cerebral palsy. So what you see here is the design of the parent study. And what you see, first of all, is that there are different age cohorts on which data were collected. You see the 0 to 5, the 5 to 9, 9 to 16, and the 16 to 24. And the latest cohort, the 16 to 24, also participated in the 13-year follow-up. So we were able to see children with cerebral palsy that we saw in early adolescence, to see them again and talk to them again at the age of 33. So to understand a little bit, when you see the 0 to 5 age range, you see the children were included either at the age of 1 or 2, and there were 4 measurements in the period from 0 to 5. So there were lots of data on physical functioning, but also on the activities and participation domain. That we also focused on the parents, the family, the personal factors, environmental factors. So all those colored letters, the U, the O, the A, the R, were all representing data waves. So if you go on, Matthijs, you see that, can you go back? Is that the design of the parent study, it took a long time, it took 20 years of research, but it resulted in 187 scientific publications, 144 conference contributions, 29 centers collaborating together to get these data, and 10 PhD theses. So there's a lot of scientific data. And I assume you're all aware of the GMFCS levels that describe the mobility function of children with cerebral palsy. And what we also have known for some years are the GMFCS levels and the actual GMFM scores. In the developmental curves, you can see, predict by the GMFCS level of the child and the age of the child, what kind of activities and what the mobility is of the child. But as I said before, the parent study focused on the participation and activity domain. So if you go on, Matthijs, we were able to have these developmental curves that first of all focused on the physical functioning. We now have all those other important areas of the ICF, for example, personal daily activities. So predicted by the GMFCS level, and sometimes an intellectual disability also played an important role. We now have developmental curves of all kinds of other activities that are so important to participate and contribute to quality of life. So that's a really important thing that the parent study added to the knowledge we have about living with cerebral palsy. So if we go to the next slide, you can see an important other message that we have from the parent study, that it's now written down in scientific publications and PhD theses mainly, is that a lot of the areas of development of children with cerebral palsy continue into adulthood. When you look at below the blue boxes, you see receptive and expressive communication. We now know that before the age of 10, the maximum development is mostly reached. But for others, like on top in the brown boxes, domestic life and community life, they develop much longer until adulthood. So that's really important for parents and for young adults with cerebral palsy to know my development may be a bit slow, but I will get there. I will continue to develop myself. And the last important message from the parent study is that we now have from a lot of developmental domains, like here in the example, you see participation in domestic life. We now know what the facilitators and barriers are. For example, better mobility capacity and written communication skills facilitate participation in domestic life as a teenager. We also know from the personal and environmental factors that rigidity, going to special education in the Netherlands, and protective parenting style can serve as a barrier to participate in domestic life as a teenager. So, and the explained variance is 63 to 65%. So from a scientific point of view, this is quite strong and unique data we have. So now we're able to, if you go on a test, to go and make the shift from diagnosis to functional thinking. Okay, so what's the role in expert involvement in these kinds of projects? Well, why is it so important? It's because research becomes more relevant. In the Perrin study, from the early days on, the patient organization, CP Nederland, was included and asked to think along with the design of the study. And research becomes more relevant because that's the patient organizations or the experts by experience themselves, they keep asking questions. Why do you want to research this? Because sometimes something can be very interesting from a research point of view, but have little meaning to people in daily life. And by talking about that, the research becomes more relevant. We also know that researchers would like to have a look at a whole range of things. But by talking to people that actually live with cerebral palsy, you find out what is really important. So you make better choices and your research becomes more focused. By having expert involvement from the first steps in your study and to have them to think along, the outcome is more easily accessible because they ask the questions, okay, how does this benefit our parents? How does it benefit our peers with cerebral palsy? Please let me know what you have found out. So it's more easily accessible. And most of all, and not unimportant, I think, it's motivating for both researcher and patient. You're doing it together because you want to know more. That's why you do research, but you want to do it with a purpose. And that's why you have the patient. And it can lead to new insights. Thinking as a researcher makes you think along general lines that you have in your training as a researcher. But by talking to people that really experience it on a day-to-day basis, it can lead to new insights. But the involvement should really be done right and always consider the unique contribution of everyone's expertise. And that with that, I'm not only aiming at the experts' experience, the people with cerebral palsy and their parents, but also the professionals, the healthcare professionals working in their hospitals and in their centers from day to day with people with cerebral palsy. So they have a unique contribution. The experts by experience have their own unique contribution. The researchers have. And all these different perspectives should really be used equally. They should all have an equal contribution to the process. So the involvement should also always be aimed at working together. You can never do it on your own. Everyone has a unique contribution. So in one of the projects that was a follow-up of the Perrin study, they worked together with the patient organization again and with young adults with cerebral palsy. And the researcher talked about how can we discuss this involvement? How can we embed the involvement in every project that we do? And what they did is they came up with the involvement matrix. And in basics, on the left side, in the orange, you see the stage of the project. And in the blue, you see the role of the expert in the project. So different roles in different stages of the project. This is what we call the involvement matrix, is made with experts by experience themselves. So they have looked together at the process of doing research and found out, hey, what can we do to make sure that in every project we discuss how our expertise is embedded. So this is the involvement matrix, and I'd like to share with you a short video on how it can be used.
The involvement matrix,
You see it
working
now?
together with experts by experience. Do you want your project to make a significant difference and have societal impact? Then you need to work together with those with first-hand experience. Collaborate with experts by experience from the start of your project. Experts by experience are people who have lived experience in the area of your project. For example, patients, children, their parents, youth, and elderly. Why to involve them? First of all, it makes sense to work together with people the project is about. Also, it recognizes and empowers the experts by experience. Moreover, it results in new insights that you as project leader might not have. This leads to hands-on results that really benefit the people you focus on in your project. Today, the involvement of experts by experience in projects is often very limited. Too often, they are seen as study objects, and projects are about them instead of with them. We can do better, but how? Our answer: project leaders and experts by experience should engage in regular dialogue about their ideas, needs, and expectations, to make clear agreements about the nature of involvement of experts by experiences in a project. We have created a tool to start this dialogue, the involvement matrix. The various involvement roles of the expert by experience run horizontally in this matrix. The listener chooses to stay informed on the process. The co-thinker wants to share his or her opinion. The advisor provides solicited and unsolicited advice. The partner collaborates with researchers on an equal basis. And the director takes initiative and makes decisions. The diverse project phases run vertically. Experts by experience may wish to fulfill different roles in different phases. For a project with personal and societal impact, you collaborate with experts by experience. Use the involvement matrix as a tool to jointly make decisions on the project. Information on how to use the 5 involvement roles can be found in the practical guide of the involvement matrix. Want to learn more? Visit our website.
So I think the involvement matrix is a really great tool to not use in a way of...
Hello friends, out of 7 management and planning tools, we had seen 2 tools, that is affinity diagram and relations diagram in the last video. If you want to see it in detail, you can click on this card. As I already told to you.
Sorry about that.
I thought it was me. I thought I heard something, but it's okay. Thank you. The 2 examples of involvement with the involvement matrix. So the involvement matrix is really a tool to talk to each other about which role can I take, or which role would you like to take in the project. So it's not meant to just to fill out and email to each other and say you have this and this role in this and this stage, but really to talk about it together. So I'd like to share with you very shortly just 2 examples of involvement. And first of all is Perrin Next Step. It's an actual follow-up of the Perrin study. And Matthijs, if you can go to the next slide. I would like to show you the structure that we have in the process, in the project, because we are constantly moving around the blue circle. Actually, it's a constant movement and a constant sharing of information between the 3 groups in our project, the initiators, the builders, and the end users. And I think the nice thing is that in all 3 parts of the circle, the patient organization or patients themselves are represented. So first of all, in the top hand, the right side, the initiators are the patient organization, professionals, researchers, and project managers. So it's a group of 4 people that is actually working on the goal of the project and is starting up different phases of the project. Then we have the group of builders, and the builders is a group of people with CP, parents, professionals, and researchers that actually help us to translate all the knowledge that we have that I showed you earlier on the Perrin study to really take the next step and to make sure that we translate the knowledge into usable information that can be used by young people with CP, their parents, and professionals. So you can either use the information just to inform yourself about the development, And you can use it to prepare for a doctor's visit and to really see where my questions are about my development. What do I need to discuss with my rehabilitation physician? And actually the builders, they really have a decisive role. If they say, no, we don't need this part of the information, we have to take a left here instead of the right, that we as initiators maybe had foreseen or planned, then we will go to the left, because they are the ones that have all the experience together, both the professionals and the parents and the people with CP. So once we have a structure and once part of the information is translated, we have a group of end users, again, with people with CP, parents, professional association, and researchers, that we present a part of the project that was almost finished. And we say, this is what we have thought, this is what we've made. Please help us to look at it and find out, is this usable for you? So they have more of a broader view on the translation process. And then the process starts again with the initiators. What should we do? What's the next phase? And in this process, you can see people with CP, parents, and professional associations are included, but we also have different expertise adding to that. There's the pairing consortium, that are the whole group of researchers that did the pairing study. We have expertise on shared decision making, and we have expertise on building the online environment to present the information. So that's one of the examples that shows you that there's both structural involvement, because all groups are represented in each part of the project, and also practical involvement. They can really say, we have a need for this part of the information to be more explained, or we need to emphasize something else. Okay, and the second example I would like to show, explain to you is, which I think is a really great project, because it's the other way around. It's the initiative and the project management for this project is actually based inside the patient organization. It's a quality instrument for psychosocial care. So it's a document that we are making that describes what optimal psychosocial care in rehabilitation medicine should be about. The initiative came from parents, and the parent organization facilitated the process. And the patient perspective is both in the working groups and in the steering groups. So again, it's structurally embedded in the research process. By the way we try to describe what optimal psychosocial care in rehabilitation medicine is by looking on the one hand at the literature, but on the other hand, we also had focus groups. And those focus group data and the data from literature review, they are both equally contributing to what we think, what the quality instrument describes as good psychosocial care. So there's really an equal contribution of both. And of course, we're implementing the results together, because it's based in the patient organization, but it's done with researchers and professionals. So again, all parties and all experts are included. And I think that's really the core of getting to the next step, to the next level with research and functional thinking and linking to daily practice to do it together.
So I think these are the messages for you to take home from this session. We know that contextual factors are an important target for intervention to optimize participation of children and with disabilities. And in order to intervene to these contextual factors, we need expertise from the experts by experiences, and it's needed and valuable for every step in the scientific process. To do it together, as well, experts by experience, as healthcare professionals and researchers. We need a whole triangle in order to good and relevant research. And therefore, we need to know our own expertise. Every part of the triangle have to know what we know, and also acknowledge the limits of our own expertise. And because you know what you need to know what you don't know and where you need other experts for. And we need therefore equal collaboration with the recognition of all these different kinds of expertise, and then we can make relevant and good clinical projects as well in research, but also in innovation and in quality standard projects. So those are our experiences in what we did the past years in working together and making the shift from diagnosed thinking towards functional thinking. And we wonder if there are any questions, or if anyone likes to share their own experiences, give tips or advice to the rest of the people. So I cannot see you also. You just have to start talking if you have a question. That's fine with me.
Is there nobody that wants to respond?
Well,
can I then? Oh, go ahead, Anna. Please do.
Thank you, Matthias and colleagues. That was very interesting, and you know, your experience and the work that is going on in Netherlands is fascinating. I'm Arnab Seal. I'm a neurodevelopmental pediatrician based in the UK. And the topic for the listening and sharing sessions came out of a discussion which we were having in a group called the Global Professional Education Group. And the main thinking was not that we have successfully gone from a diagnostic approach to a functional approach in some parts of the world, and in other parts it's lagging. We know that is the case. But what we were repeatedly finding in our practice is that apart from the triangle of researchers, healthcare providers, and families, patients, there is a fourth dimension, and that is policymakers. And policymakers determine access to care, access to services, access to different things. And often their route is via diagnosis rather than on what the functional ability of an individual is. And I wondered whether that is something which has been a problem in the Netherlands.
Yeah, thank you, Arnab, and thank you for your remark. I think you're very right about that, and we did not explicitly neglect them in our triangle, but you're completely right that policymakers are very important in setting the standards and setting how we should think. I think we quite have that thing in the Netherlands, that all the administration is done by diagnose, and the complexity of care is often also defined by diagnose, whereas we know better that the diagnosis is just one piece of the often very complicated puzzle. I think, and maybe that's naive, although I don't hope so, that if we, together with professionals, healthcare professionals and parents, the end users, if we define the standards of care, I think, well, in an ideal world, let's put it like that, policymakers cannot do anything else than to acknowledge that is the way we should go. So I think we have to do much PR on the importance of the contextual factors of functioning as opposite to the diagnose, and to acknowledge the importance of psychosocial factors, for instance. And I think we're doing that step by step. I think I think parents and parent organization, but also in adult medicine, the patient organizations make steps to make sure that we as doctors acknowledge the importance of those factors, and hopefully as a next step also the policymakers. But it's different. It's very difficult. That's completely true. Yeah.
I mean, we have probably left them out a bit in this discussion, our experiences, and they are engaged and usually pretty smart people. So maybe we should start those discussions where we engage them as the fourth part. So instead of a triangle, make it into a square.
Yeah. Yeah, you're completely right. I can give you another short thing about that, is that if we want to convince policymakers that an intervention it has an effect, we always need to show that effect with studies, with data, and it's always easier to use hard data for that. For instance, if you talk about healthcare use, just use the days that a patient is admitted to the hospital. Those are hard endpoints, but I think not always relevant. And if we want to point out the relevance of those factors, so psychosocial factors, which we often call soft factors, we have to make them less soft and more measurable, maybe not only quantitatively, but also qualitatively.
Yeah, maybe to add to that point a little bit, Arnab, is what I see is somewhat, I wouldn't say light at the end of the tunnel, but some light is that when we look at the policymakers in the Netherlands, there's a lot of emphasis and attention on shared decision making at this point in time. So, and the shared decision making, one of the basics is that you acknowledge the important things for the patient to talk about and to look at, you know, different options for treatment with the important factors for the patient. So actually, I see that as a positive thing, that there will be much more attention for this as well. Looking back and looking forward, I think there's a good development forward for that.
Right, thank you for that addition, Marijn. Are there any more remarks or questions from the audience?
Johannes, you need to come back in.
Adele, oh, sorry, Adele, hardly there now. No, thank you very much for these wonderful presentations, both Marieke and Marijn and Matthijs. I'm so happy to see that over the years, the influence of patients and experiential expertise, experiential experts, have become such an involvement in the context and in the development of healthcare in general. Because at first it was like you were talking about them and now you're talking with them. And perhaps, but I may be too bold to say this, we're slowly growing to having them decide what needs to be done. Cooperation instead of telling them what to do. More contextual thinking, these kind of things. The funny thing is, I spoke to the Israeli organization. I'm joining the several sessions today, obviously. I was talking to the Israeli organizations and we talked about flipping the Icf framework, which you already did, Matthijs. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. And they said, well, we're reading from right to left instead from left to right. And if you do that as well as flipping the Icf format, you get another insight in what needs to be done and how to perceive the situation of the people that you're working with. And that might be a thought to have a look at.
Yes, that's a very interesting point, Johannes. And well, you also inspired me to flip the ICF model, which I kind of use as a standard now in my presentations. But I think it's a very nice one to start from left to right, or from right to left with the participation level, as that is most, I think, most relevant for the patients and people themselves, which also emphasizes the remark of Arnab, in which the policymakers become more important. As the professor of my rehabilitation department here said in his inaugural talk, if the doctor that aims to improve participation of parents will get frustrated in time, because, well, if you want to use in his remark, if you want to improve participation, you shouldn't be a doctor. You should be a politician. And unfortunately, I think he's a little bit right there. And I hope that as a doctor, as doctor in this era, we will change that a bit to make, by working together, make it a joint effort to improve participation of people with disabilities and children, especially. But I think you're completely right, and I think that's might be more. It might be better to present the ICF model that way. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may add something as well to that. And like I also said in my presentation, participation of everyone with a disability is really our utmost goal in working in things that we want, in the things that we want to achieve, and the things that we want to that we can do for them. And it also shows, and I'm really happy to see this, that whenever we try to engage and involve people in such projects, because they're really big projects most of the time, we find such an enthusiasm in people wanting to participate, and they really, it takes them a lot of time as well. We ask, in some cases, we really ask things of them, time-wise and thinking-wise, and they are really so motivated and enthusiastic to join and think with us and think how they can make it in the best possible way for others as well, because they want to help others. That is also something that is, in my view, very special. So really, I'm happy to be part of this sort of bigger picture in a way that we can, do the best that we can for the people who need it. And I'm happy to see that many people feel this same urgency in working together with us.
Yeah, it is really nice to see, and I really hope that the new generation, the younger researchers, really start their research in the beginning, the very first research they do with parents and patient advocates and patients together, because it does need some vulnerability from the researcher as well. You need to be able to look beyond your own goals, maybe, and to be open to the opinions of others and to really incorporate them. It might ask to be a bit more flexible in your research, or go the other way around, or and that's really nice to see, but it's also a learning process, I think, for a lot of researchers and professionals when you talk about healthcare innovation projects. But I think we're on the right path, and it's what a lot of people forget, that it's so much fun to do with everyone instead of just doing it by yourself.
Is there anyone that would like to share their own experiences in working together? And maybe success stories or things that didn't went the way they wanted? If not, I can maybe start with a first difficult story, because sharing our success is always easy, isn't it? But I think even with using the participation matrix in order to define which role we want to have as researchers, and which role parents or parent expert will have and would like to have as in the research project in every phase. It's still quite difficult as a parent, which I heard and hear every time from them, to really bring in their own vision in research meetings, because quite often you sit there with a few professors, a few very experienced researchers, and then as a parent, and well, obviously we invited them and we acknowledge their experience, we pay them, and we do everything to make sure that they feel equal, but still they feel as parents between all the researchers and the professors. And that's I think that's an important thing to realize. Even when we open every door and do everything that we need to make them equals, it still might feel as a barrier to really say something what's on their mind, because most of the time it will be something like feel them to point their finger, you're not doing it right, and mostly they are right in that, but it might feel as a barrier. So we have to, every time we involve parents, we must make sure that that they feel free to talk, and completely free to talk. And that's, I think, for me as a person in the projects on which I'm now on, working together with parents, I think that's a point of attention during every meeting. So I think, Camila, you're in the chat writing about using the involvement matrix in research, and you're saying it's amazing. What are your amazing experiences? Can you share something about that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm doing a research in partnership with Professor Marilyn Keitler from the UMC Utrecht, and we are using the involvement matrix to engage young adults with CP to develop a questionnaire with them to ask questions about their transition to adulthood in Brazil. So they share their thoughts based on their lived experience and say, this is what we should ask to other adolescents that are transitioning to adulthood to understand how these things are happening with them, like trying to find a job and studies and build a family and parents' relationships. And it's been a really amazing experience. We are learning a lot with their experiences, and yeah, it's been wonderful.
Great, nice to hear that from you. I think that's a very nice way of working together. And I think that, Marika, you did the same kind of thing with young people with CP, and I will always think about the meeting on the EACD that we did with those youngsters. Can you say something about that?
Yes, I definitely can. I think a few years back in Amsterdam, there was this European Association of Childhood Disabilities, and actually that was at the end of the project, in which of which one of the results was also the involvement matrix. And as this project focused on adolescents with cerebral palsy being able to participate in the best possible way in sports, study, and healthcare as well, yeah. So we really flipped the perspective. Actually, we really said, well, you should be telling us what to focus on, how we would give the research study, how we can do the research study. So they really took us on their hand, while normally it's the other way around. Normally a researcher has a plan, and this is the plan how we move forward. In this project, it was really the other way around and the other perspective. And it really led to beautiful insights in their way of thinking and what they felt was important. And like Matthijs said, one of the, in the end, there was this Congress, and we had three of them actually were attending this meeting. They presented themselves, they told us what their perspective was, how they felt about the outcomes of the research, why they joined, but also, yeah, it was really beautiful. That was, I think, the main and most important thing. It was so beautiful to see those three people. I think they were about 15 years old, in front of a full large group of people. Like Matthijs just also painted the picture with all those parents in front of researchers and professionals. So really, they took the lead in taking us with them in their in what they felt was important, and then how they did actually the project together with all the others. And I think they blow everybody away. And yeah, it was really beautiful. And one of the others that could not make it physically to attend this meeting, he also was sort of there because I told his story, and I had some pictures of him for the people there. So yeah, he could not make it there, but he was there as well, and that was really such a great session. And all the others went to the 4 people, the 4 adolescents, which we were all very proud of. It was really good, really great session. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And it was very nice also to see the big gathering of people, of scientists and professionals listening to those 4 experts and really interested in their situation. And I think that's a key factor, that we should be interested in our patients, and we should be interested in the people that we work for. And if we do that and keep doing that, we will improve healthcare and rehabilitation care step by step together on our way. So I think if there are there any short questions or short remarks? Well, thank you. And should there be any remarks, I will put here our email addresses and my Twitter. So please feel free to get in touch with us and to share your experiences. We thank you very much for your attention and for your questions and remarks, and for your interest in this important topic. We wish you a very good rest of the day, and maybe we see you in the next sessions. I would like to thank Marieke and Marijn for their contribution, and I call it a meeting. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.